Admiral, there be whales here.
Get the cheese to sick bay. The doctor should look at it as soon as possible.
It is the way in which we propagate our species. Please demonstrate how this is accomplished. So, what's next? I don't know.
Hi, and welcome to Casual Trek, a Star Trek recap and ranking podcast brought to you by Nerd and Tie and Whale Rail for when your whale transport fails. I'm Charlie Etheridge-Nunn, a writer and a Continuum fan.
And I am Miles Reid-Lobatto, a science fiction writer and a fan of that time-traveling show Doctor Who, where I don't think whales turned up. Oh, wait, no, there was that one episode with the space whales, but does have a shape-shifting companion in the comics who likes to just go around as a penguin.
And I am Reanna Reid-Lobatto, editor, writer, fan of Ecco the Dolphin, and a person who thinks that whale song is pretty groovy.
Yeah, welcome, Rihanna. The audience will have heard her once before as our resident Pokémon expert. Which
I'll be that too, yes.
Yeah. While I can't quite say I'm a casual with Pokémon, I definitely cede my kind of the expert role here over to you for that. So, normally, we look at 3 different Star Trek shows, all based around a theme, and rank them on a big list of best to worst. But this time, we're having a look at Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. It's been a little while since we've done a movie, but we wanted the stars to be right for this, as this is a film that I'm pretty sure means something to all of us here.
Oh, yeah.
So, Rihanna, as our guest star, where are you coming to Star Trek from?
Well, Star Trek is a series that mostly passed me by in my youth. My focus on the kind of that whole genre was I was more raised on Star Wars. From very, very young. Like, I basically remember watching Empire kind of in the 80s, like basically only just getting Luke's the good guy. Just being that young. And then it was like that, and Red Dwarf back in the day because we had it on our PBS station. So I think The Voyage Home was really my first proper, which it's definitely a good entry point because it's accessible, it's fun. And then I've kind of dipped my toes in here and there, watched some more of the original films, and then really got into kind of wanting to delve more into the franchise with Lower Decks, which I absolutely love.
Yes, I admit I've generally, like, Emma is generally all right with Star Trek, but also aware that I watch a lot of it for this. So I mostly try and keep her kind of free from having to follow along, but she will sit in for some of the movies. And then, since Section 31, she left 20 minutes in, and it's like, no, just not anymore. So, yeah.
I still think Rihanna had the right idea by just going to the bedroom before I even put the movie on and just watched the Pokemon cartoon, and then just had to listen to my screaming, "What the fuck am I watching?" next door. I think she had the right idea all along, because what the fuck were we watching? And honestly, for a show called Casual Trek, Rihanna might be the first person we've had on the show who would technically be considered a casual.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair assessment.
Yeah. Okay, and before we go on to the main feature, what non-Star Trek thing have you been enjoying since we last spoke?
Well, I have been into a game on Steam. I downloaded the demo first. It is called Tavern Talk. Let's see. Is the the developer is called Gentle Troll. It is basically a visual novel with a little bit of drink potion mixing mechanic. There's kind of a little bit of a kind of choose your own adventure aspect to it, how you can guide the different characters who come into your tavern, ask for your advice. And then they'll either order a drink, or you can choose a drink to make them based on kind of the clues that you get. And they're kind of stat based. So like, oh, you're going to want mostly charisma with a little bit of dexterity kind of in your drink. And then the various people who come into your tavern, they're all delightful characters, some really cool character art. They give you little tidbits of information. And so you basically also act as the rumor monger to all of the adventurers who come in. So you can assemble a quest for them based on bits of information and rumors that you've heard.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really fun so far. I'm still pretty early into it, but I'm really impressed. It's very pretty looking and very queer friendly as well. So just an all around fun experience. Very chill. Yeah.
Cool. And Miles, what about you?
I recently went to see a film with occasional guest star Sele, as the brand new intro in the Gundam franchise dropped. Okay, the new entry in the Gundam franchise starts in April, but they put the first 3 episodes out as a movie, and the movie's been doing gangbuster numbers both in the US and in Japan. And it is called Mobile Suit Gundam GQuuux. That's GQ, 4 U's, and an X.
Yeah, I thought you'd slipped on the keyboard or something in this show.
No. And it's another alternate universe. But unlike all the other Gundam AUs, which is basically its own thing, this is a what if from the original show, which is what if in episode 1 of the original show, Shah came on a mission to the space colony, and instead of Amuro getting in the Gundam, Shah sees this brand new Federation mobile suit and goes, I must nick it. And, and proceeds to do a Scotsman on the Gundam, steals it, and then proceeds to change the entire course of the 1-year war from the original show. And so then after the first 30 minutes, it jumps forward 5 years, changes art style and aesthetic dramatically, because the first 30 minutes very much ape an updated version of the 70s design, character styles, and music. And then goes into, after the time skip, goes into something a bit more, I don't want to say kind of Furikuri-esque, is a bit more cartoony and less more realistic than the original show's aesthetic. It's a lot of fun. It's very interesting. The new designs, this show is a co-production between the Gundam Studio Sunrise and Studio Kara, which has done all the Neon Genesis Evangelion rebuild movies and the Shin Kamen Rider, Shin Ultraman. It's Hideaki Anno's baby, and he's heavily involved in production. So people have been jokingly calling it Shin Gundam for that reason. And nice. It's a lot of fun. The first 30 minutes, unless you were very much up on the original TV series kind of lore and technobabble, you can get lost. Reanna went with and was completely lost because, it's introducing characters and concepts who only turn up in the TV show and not in the movie. You're like, who is this old guy with the mustache, and why are the 2 people sitting next to me giggling insanely?
It's like, I'm clearly missing something.
Yeah. It's very bright, it's very vibrant, and I am interested to see where the show goes.
Me too.
Excellent.
I did pick up interest, kind of
after that messy part in Any What If, which is going, okay, here is where the timelines diverge.
Yeah, from that point, I definitely picked up on it.
Yeah, and now it's its own thing. Yeah, as someone that only knows Gundam from the Dynasty Warriors Gundam games and the first anime series, and I don't know, there's so much of it. The idea of going, okay, here's a jumping on point does sound like a good thing if it comes out over here.
Yeah, the good thing about a lot of the AU shows like Gundam Wing and Gundam Seed, which is on Netflix, is that they're all self-contained. So, it's very much like Final Fantasy, in which, the only core, a linking element is that there is a 16 to 20 meter tall giant robot called a Gundam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wing was my favorite because not my first. G Gundam is my favorite now. Wing was my first because that was on Cartoon Network back in the day. So
right,
and that was at the time where anime was not as prevalent as it is now. It was basically I watched or read whatever I could get my hands on because there wasn't a ton of it. It was took what you could get. So yeah.
And so, Charlie, what non-Star Trek thing have you been enjoying this week?
So, I think, as listeners of the show can probably tell, there are some horror fans here. Yes. And, I've grown to really enjoy a little solo board game called Final Girl, which it's got such a weird style of presentation because you've got a core box, which is like the engine of it, and then you get a feature film, which is in a separate box, which is a location and a killer. So the introductory one is Camp Happy Trail, which is basically Friday the 13th, but it's, filed off the copyright part. So you've got Hans instead of Jason, who's this guy in a pig mask with a a meat cleaver and such instead of a machete and hockey mask and all that. And the third series came out really recently and has things like a Terminator scenario. So I've been enjoying playing those during lunch breaks at the moment. And with that, you're basically rescuing a savior of the future who's just a real punk at first, and you need to build trust with them, all while this giant robot's beelining for a shopping mall to get to you and to get more specifically to them. So you need to get them to trust you and run and knock all the bits off of the hunter. And when you do that, you can rebuild it as an ally for when the not quite T-1000 comes next to try and take you down and has a lot of health. So yeah, it was good fun.
That sounds fun.
I had some slapstick moments with banana skins and getting the T-1000 to slip over a railing into a store. They had a whole thing because it's so compact. All of the walls in the mall, if you shoot or punch an enemy or get punched, you get knocked through the walls as well. So just kind of having to use a boomstick to shoot this hunter through an arcade into the security room and running. It was, for a tiny little board game, it's a good fun time.
That sounds cool.
I think I've got the Hellraiser one next, which has a map that just keeps changing and afflictions that you suffer that you need to get rid of. So yeah, there's that, a Stranger Things, a Saw, and I forget what the last one is. But yeah, it's been entertaining going through it. I think they're planning seasonal ones this year. So there's going to be one based on Scream, which, again, as a fan of Scream, I'm very much looking forward to.
And now, our feature presentation.
The main event is Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. This aired on the 26th of November, 1986. Screenplay by Steve Mearson and Peter Crykes, and Harve Bennett and Nicholas Meyer. I assume the way it's presented there, it's a couple of writing teams. The story is by Leonard Nimoy and Harve Bennett, and it was directed by Leonard Nimoy. The UK number one hit was Berlin with Take My Breath Away, the love theme from Top Gun, and the US had Human League with Human. The first one, obviously. I know. Yeah. Obviously. I mean, who wouldn't? Yeah, the Human League one isn't one that I remember from them.
I've never really listened to the Human... I generally, like, when it comes to, like, 80s music, I generally avoid, like, the new romantic... kind of period in like new, like I like a bit of new wave, but I'm not gonna go out of my way. I generally go for like 80s rock and hair metal and power ballads, like Take My Breath Away, the love theme from Top Gun.
Yeah, of course. yes, I mean, out of the two of them, I think Take My Breath Away is definitely the one that's had longevity there.
Yeah, I think this may have been like the first, like, because I would have been 3 when Top Gun came out. So I think this was the first song I kind of remember being like really popular because it was played everywhere.
It's a good song. I mean, I have said I'm a fan of a good power ballad. So yeah, kind of that kind of 80s kind of sound. The two songs really kind of exemplify that kind of, it's very nostalgic.
Yeah. Just everything, how much synth? More synth.
Oh yeah, all of the synth.
All synth.
So, I believe it's you two handling the recap for Star Trek 4. So, if you got your materials ready there.
Yep. We're going to, as is typical of our two-parters and feature films, we're going to go for a 10-minute relay. So I will be trying to recap the first hour of this film in 5 minutes, while Reanna will try and recap the second half of the film where all the plot happens in 5 minutes.
Wow.
All right.
Okay, so let's see what you got.
Last time on Star Trek, Spock died for about a weekend, then got better. Kirk's Spock died, Kirk's son David died, but did not get better. Kirk, McCoy, Sulu, Chekhov, and Uhura stole the Enterprise to save Spock and promptly blew it up. It did not get better, and have done potentially lasting damage to their careers. Stick a pin in that. The Klingons are really pissed at the fact that Kirk killed Christopher Lloyd, and they believe that Kirk has been building the Genesis planet as a weapon to launch attacks on Klingon space. Sarek comes in to defend him for once being a good dad, and the Klingon's like, hey, hey, his son, the son he didn't eat, is Kirk's BFF. So, clearly, he is untrustworthy, and there'll be no peace while Kirk lives. This is as much of this is the end of the Genesis planet storyline. We don't need to think about it anymore. Meanwhile, on the planet Vulcan, everyone has been hanging out and hiding with their nicked Klingon bird of prey, which they have jovially called the HMS Bounty. Google it.
Yep.
They're about to go back to Earth and face the music with the Federation, and they're assuming that they're gonna spend the rest of their lives in prison. Spock is had his mind kind of being reintegrated with his body, so he is doing some tests on some very 80s computers, filling out all these kind of knowledge, trivia, general knowledge, and then the computer asks him how he feels. And Spock's kind of flummoxed by this one, but Spock's mum, Amanda, was like, hey, Spock, you're half human. You've gone through a very traumatic event. The computer knows this. And so you need to kind of, it wants you to understand how you're feeling emotionally. And Spock's like, I don't understand the question, mother. And Amanda's like, fine, okay, Spock, I love you, but you need to go home with your friends. And so the HMS Bounty leaves, leaving Amanda and Saavik, Spock's Vulcan protege from the first two films, who is just promptly kind of shuffled out of the series altogether. Meanwhile, a giant probe is traveling through space, and any ship or space station it comes into contact with, it promptly knocks out their systems. It reaches Earth and is beaming strange signals at the planet, which is ionizing the atmosphere. And basically, Earth is doomed. Earth is doomed yet again. The HMS Bounty picks up the distress signal from Federation Command, and Kirk is like, what's going on? Spock is able to realize that the sounds that are being broadcast in the probe would sound like whale songs if they were beamed underwater. Unfortunately, there are no whales. Aha, says Kirk. But what if we slingshotted around the sun, went back in time, found a couple of whales, took the whales, and brought them back to the present day to tell the probe that everything's okay? A plan with clearly no flaws or drawbacks, and so Kirk beams a message to the Federation. Hey, we're going to go back in time and get some whales. And I'm sure the Federation just think, right, Kirk's drunk again. Kirk's drunk calling us. They do a slingshot, and they travel back in time in a very nifty CGI trippy sequence, and find some whale song in San Francisco. They park in Golden Gate Park because, thankfully, the HMS Bounty has a cloaking device. So they just park their ship invisibly in the middle of like one of the biggest parks in San Francisco. Everyone leaves. Spock disguises his. Everyone else is kind of wearing casual clothes, and Spock is wearing like his nice kung fu outfit, and he rips off a bit and kind of just Karate Kids himself a disguise to cover his ears. And they all go into San Francisco. Remember where they parked, and thus the antics will begin. They are scared by all this traffic and cars zooming around. Kirk nearly gets run over and calls a guy a double dumbass. Realizing that they still actually need money in this time period, Kirk and Spock go off to an antique store and sell the spectacles that McCoy gave Kirk as a birthday gift way back in Star Trek II. This is one of two potential bootstrap paradoxes we will encounter in this movie. They get $100.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, I'll keep going. I'm nearly done. They get $100, which is nearly 300 quid in today's US money, and they split into 3 parties. I forgot to mention the dilithium for the Klingon ship did not survive the time travel, so they're gonna get some nuclear fission materials to basically jumpstart the engine so they can get home. And also they need so they split into 3 teams. Kirk and Spock are gonna find some whales. McCoy and Scotty are gonna find a way to make a container in the Klingon ship's hull to contain whales and a shit ton of water. Sulu is going to find a way to transport said object, and Chekhov and Uhura need to find some nuclear power they can get to. Maybe some nuclear vessels. Kirk and Spock get on a bus after learning what exact change only means, because Kirk found 2 whales called George and Gracie at a cetacean institute on the coast. They meet a punk. The punk is loudly playing a song about how he hates everybody. Spock promptly knocks the punk out. Good night, sweet punk. And asks Kirk why he's swearing. Kirk's like, yes, you have to swear every other damn word because this is what they did in the literature of the time, like Suzanne Collins and Harold Robbins, the literary giants. McCoy and Scotty find what they're doing, find a place to simulate some transparent aluminium by looking in the yellow pages, which might be the most dated joke in this film, which I think has not dated that badly. Kirk and Spock go to the Cetacean Institute and meet Professor Gillian, who is an expert on whales. And while Kirk is asking Gillian about, hey, are the whales going to be okay? And it turns out the whales are going to be released, but that's going to leave them to threat to whalers, which is very prominent in this period of time. Where's Spock? Well, it turns out that Spock has jumped into the whale cage and is promptly mind melding with the whales, much to Kirk's utter shock and horror. Turns out that while Spock is having trouble with the whole I have human emotions thing, Spock understands consent and is making sure that the whales are okay with being transported into the future. Because, as he tells Kirk, if we just assume that we can do whatever the hell we like with these whales, then we're no better than the people who hunted them to extinction. Wait a minute, says Gillian. To extinction? Kirk and Spock book it, realizing that they've told too much. And meanwhile, just a gentleman with a very notable Russian accent is asking people in San Francisco, hey, where can we find the nuclear vessels? And turns out they're in Alameda. And turns out there is a ship called the Enterprise, which is a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Okay, we have got a plan to get our power back for our ship, but we have no whales. Gillian turns up in a very nice pickup truck and gives Kirk and Spock a lift. This does not go well because Kirk is just trying to not let on that they're from the future, and Spock is just like, no. Gillian asks Spock and Kirk if they like Italian. Kirk says yes. Spock says no. Okay, only Kirk is going to go for dinner. Kirk has a date, and he's only been here like a couple of hours. Good job, Jimmy T. They drop Spock off in Golden Gate Park, where he's beamed back onto the ship, and Kirk and Jillian go off for dinner. Reanna, you go.
You got 30 seconds. Good luck.
That's not fair.
Blame Miles.
Blame Miles.
All right.
20 seconds.
Scotty and McCoy arrive at the plastics factory and use a little decidedly not Starfleet antics to give them the capability needed for the transparent aluminium for the enclosure. It's like, how do you think you didn't invent it? That's bullshit, and you know it. This is also our second bootstrap paradox.
Oh, okay. Time's up, but keep going.
All right. To put it briefly, Sulu gets his hands on a helicopter for transporting the eventual transparent aluminium enclosure. Uhura and Chekhov achieve their goal on the nuclear aircraft carrier Enterprise, but Chekhov is captured after being interrogated under suspicion of being a Soviet spy, which is actually a really funny scene. Does this mean I can go now? He is badly hurt whilst attempting to escape. Back to Jillian. She learns that the whales were released prematurely without her, leading to her explosive, very justified, "You son of a bitch." She goes to find Kirk, arriving at Will Rogers State Park with the bird of prey cloaked. Scotty has modified the Bounty's cargo bay to temporarily house George and Gracie. Still, she manages to get their attention, and they all go to rescue Chekhov from the hospital. McCoy is being McCoy at the hospital, just healing people, giving pills. I grew a new kidney! They return to the ship and, while cloaked, locate George and Gracie where they're being hunted by Finnish whalers. The whales are beamed aboard after they freak out the whalers by dropping their cloak, and the crew returns to their time. However, the probe causes the ship to lose power and they crash into the turbulent San Francisco Bay. They do manage to release the whales, but at first it seems that the whales are not communicating with the probe properly, and it seems like all is lost, but eventually it works. The probe reverses course, and the water, while still turbulent, it seems like, the sun comes out and everybody is rejoicing in the water. Hooray!
Yay.
Admiral, there be whales here! But the crew still has to stand before the Federation Council for all of the antics that they did before this, and they are not amused. Long list of accusations. However, they are willing, in light of having them save the Earth, to drop everything apart from Kirk having disobeyed orders, and so he is the only one who is properly punished, and he is demoted to captain, but that means he gets to do what he does best, captaining a ship. So he got his ship back. So seems like a good deal all around. Everybody's happy. Also, Jillian has joined Starfleet, a wonderful use of the "I choose to stay" trope. I love it. They say their goodbyes because she already has her first science mission. Even more remarkably, Spock speaks with Sarek, who seems to have generally made peace with Spock's decisions and his crewmates. We get a few heartwarming moments. It's like, they're my friends. And when asked if he has a message for Amanda, he says, "I feel fine." And it's beautiful. And then basically with a let's see what this baby can do aboard their newly christened Enterprise, the Enterprise is off. The end.
Nice. That's 3 minutes 10 over. I'm going to say the majority of that was on Miles.
That was on me. I take it. I take it. I would like to say that I fell on my sword to make sure my wife isn't humiliated first time out, but no, I fluffed it. That's on me.
It's
Promote me to captain.
There's yeah, not quite a punishment there. Like, give Kirk, the guy having an existential crisis, going, "I can't go home again. I've been promoted away from being a captain on a ship where I can just roam around and, see what's out there," to basically do that.
It is very adjacent to the another trope that I love, where basically a person in authority says, like, "You've done this horrible thing and this horrible thing and this horrible thing, and I've never seen anybody braver in my life," and they turn it around like that. It's very adjacent to that, which is corny as hell, and I always love every time it turns up in a movie or something.
Meanwhile, the Klingon ambassadors are in the next room just listening with like a cup against the door and they're like, those bastards. They said they were going to punish him.
Oh, they've done it again.
Our
How
fleet.
dare they? Yeah. Oh, God. The Klingons are going to be pissed off at that. That does feel a bit like, you gave him the lightest of slap on the wrist. In fact, worse, you gave him a treat as part of this.
You've encouraged him.
You gave him a ship and basically said, go antagonize the Klingons. Nothing bad can happen.
Yep. I did love the end for Gillian as well, because I did wonder if it was... I'd forgotten, because I was maybe just double digits last time I saw this. That it was... I was hoping it wasn't going to end up like a James Bond movie, where they're like, oh yes, we're together forever, we're a big item, never seen again. And here, with her going, yeah, it's great, I've got a career and everything, bye!
Yeah.
Like, we had an awkward date, and it turns out the future's pretty rad.
I'd probably go that route too.
Yeah, and we actually in Casual Trek we've seen her.
Oh yes, of course. After this, in the graphic novel we covered yonks ago.
Oh, so that answers my a question I was going to say. Do we ever learn anything about where she ends up? Cool.
I think she just ends up looking after the whales because, hey, in a time when whales are extinct, there are very few whale experts.
I mean, she can basically write her own paycheck in that
pretty
case.
much. And this is where we get the long standard kind of like, thing they reference, but, that all Federation starships have dolphins on them, which of course end with the fantastic horny dolphins in Star Trek Lower Decks.
Yeah, I did end up in my notes mentioning that Book would be really proud with all of this, given his whole kind of, the Star Trek equivalent of your roguish Han Solo type is basically an animal preservation guy. Yeah. I don't know if there are whales in that grimdark future, though.
Maybe, more than likely. Perhaps they have their own empire at this point.
Oh, God, probably. Yeah. What did you two think of the threat of this? Like, the big sinister column.
I liked it because, it's nice to have that that the threat isn't that we have a big bad guy trying to blow up the Earth for revenge or power or, like, I don't know, to make his dick feel hard. Like we sometimes do. It was just nice. It was basically, this machine is trying to communicate with us. Unfortunately, its method of communication is hazardous to just everything we own.
It feels like part of that thing of the Star Trek universe is full of this stuff.
Weird shit.
Yeah.
It makes sense for the kind of movie that it is, in kind of, for what I'm aware of, kind of in the continuity. It makes sense for it to just be just kind of some one-off thing that just gets the adventure started.
Yeah.
Yeah. If this was about that thing, about the sinister column, it would be undercooked. But this film isn't about that. It's about the time travel shenanigans. So we just need something big, eldritch, unknowable. It speaks whale song, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get some whales.
I think like the most villainous characters we get in this film, I don't know, where there's the US military,
The whalers.
There's the whalers. One of whom you point out looks like JD Vance.
Yes, that's right. One of them does. I was like, you son of a bitch.
Even back then, he was a wrong'un.
And like some obnoxious doctors who McCoy promptly tells off in a lift.
Oh, I love how little McCoy respected time.
Yes.
Any of this. He was just like, no, I'm fixing that. I'm lying about this. Yeah, like Kirk's probably dealt with any blowback, any kind of issues, if even he bothers with them. So
what is this, the Dark Ages?
Just like,
yeah,
I loved that.
McCoy comes in, just goes into this hospital, just going, "This is horrendous. I hate it."
He's just like, on principle, he's just like, all right, let's just see what I can fix before we need to leave. I'm on I'm on a schedule, but he still manages to do quite a lot of good.
Yeah.
Both he and Scotty, it felt like they had a lot of fun in the past. Like, sure, there were threats going on, but Scotty's acting was so good. Like, this is why he doesn't do away missions most of the time. Like, he really can't handle that.
It's like the Prime Directive is so arbitrary in this movie. It's just
I mean, we had, like, I know we at some point while watching this, we had to discuss, like, is this technically breaking the Prime Directive? And it breaks the temporal Prime Directive.
I feel like technically yes.
Technically yes, but it's a pre-warp civilization, but it's also, we know this pre-warp civilization works its shit out.
Well, yeah, and they got to it without any of this causing warp to happen.
Yeah.
You know? Despite a lot of the nonsense that went on. But yeah, and some of the Shatner performance in this, when he is in the aquarium, there are some moments.
I think, like, again, I think, like, the blessing and the curse of this podcast is going, Shatner can act, and can act well when he clearly gives a toss and is not just phoning it in. And he's, I think he's just kind of enjoying getting to do a bit of comedy. And, he gets to play a bit broad. Starting off with his "Remember Where We Parked," and that's like that's the signature of, like, yes, here begin the antics.
Definitely, yeah. It's that thing of, we often note that Patrick Stewart wants to get involved with the shenanigans.
Oh yeah, Patrick Stewart clearly wants shenanigans every week. He wants to wear a funny hat. He wants to get in a fist fight. Whereas Kirk is just like, all right, I'm just gonna sell these glasses, and then I was also, like, watching the film in the context of, this is a man who lost his son like 3 months ago, very suddenly, after just reuniting with his son. And I think the bit you unfortunately missed in your recap because of time was the awkward dinner date.
Yes.
And I think that's, like, for Kirk, that he's just like, I've had all this weird traumatic shit happen to me. I just want to sit in a restaurant and just like have a date. I just want to feel like a normal person, even though he doesn't know how to handle a pizza.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, I guess it's that thing of, we're lost in time. So the present day, kind of having just lost the kid he's just realised he's had, and all that.
The fish out of water aspect of the plot is just so much fun.
Yes. Definitely. God, as an adult, watching Chekhov gleefully talking in mangled English to the police, it's like, oh no, now I realise, like, adult Charlie's watching this
now you're getting
with awareness of history and going, oh no, oh dear. Like, the first time I saw this was on a projector in a hippie festival. It was the first Star Trek film I ever saw, and I was too young to get a lot of those kind of things. I think my brother and I saw it a couple of times after, but again, not with any knowledge of history. Not with, like, oh yeah, maybe this is a bad thing to do. So yeah, Chekhov was good fun as well. Like, again, he's someone, Walter Koenig feels like someone who isn't often used as much as he would like, and getting him to play around.
Definitely good. Not in Star Trek, which is why when he turns up as a recurring cop, as recurring Psychop Bester in Babylon 5, he's getting the chance. He clearly revels the chance to be, like, the most sadistic bastard in space.
Oh.
And he is great as Bester in Babylon 5. He's just very clearly relishing getting to be, like, this unapologetic villain who has, like, this very kind of sly side to him.
We need to watch more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you see the range on a genre actor like that, it's like watching John Lithgow in things. Going, this is Dick Solomon from Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah, I get what you mean exactly when you mention John Lithgow, because man, he's got range.
It's like,
oh my god, seeing him in Conclave the other weekend, and he was very good fun as the slimiest, most corrupt candidate for Pope.
See, when you say John Lithgow, I can't help but yes, I meant first time I saw him was Third Rock from the Sun, but for me, he's always going to be John Big Booty in The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. And wait, hang on, no, shit, is that Chris? I can't remember who plays John. No, it is John Lithgow because John Lithgow plays Emilio Lizardo, the villain of Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, with an incredible fake Italian accent. It's Christopher Lloyd who plays John Big Booty and keeps saying it's John Big Booty to John Lithgow.
Wow. Okay.
Oh god, there are some great facial shacting when he realizes that Spock is in the whale tank, and he's just like shit.
There's just a bit of like a double take there, like it's wonderful.
Oh god, all of the hamming, which I get. Like, oh no, like all of this. Like, don't fuck with time. Don't do anything to embarrass us. Spock, do your Daniel San cosplay. Like, yeah, and then of course he's in the fucking water. Oh my god, he apparently can talk whale. So yeah, great.
Apparently he can mind meld with whales.
Yeah, I mean, having just finished running for Star Trek RPG, our Vulcan player did, in the first 2 sessions, try mind melding with different people and entities. Both times went very badly. So I get the instinct. It's there, just like, well, it's a shortcut. Fuck it. Boom, mind meld. But yeah, luckily this time it actually works out. Yeah.
Yeah, like, Spock gets a lot to do, but he's also at times he's basically like the comedic sidekick to Kirk, which I think Les Leonard was like, I don't want to get the chance to be silly but still be Spock.
Yeah, he's
God, all of the hells. It's like, okay, I'm pleased they
hell your whales.
Eventually it got down, but yeah, there was a lot of the hells.
I like when he's like when Kirk comes into the ship, he's like, Spock, how long have we got? And Spock's like, just give me 1 damn minute, Admiral. So,
by George, I think he's got it.
Okay, so we're all children of the 80s, living in 2024. And so we've all had that moment of watching a beloved comedy film from the 80s and 90s, and coming across a joke that has aged incredibly poorly. A good example would be Bill and Ted, where most of the jokes in Bill and Ted still carry, but when they use the F slur as a negative derogatory term, it's like that's the most dated. Then there's Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, which the last 30 minutes of that film need to just be dead in a fire.
Yeah,
it was very comforting that the joke that aged this film the most was any kind of derogatory or condescending term. It's the fact that they don't know what the yellow page is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're standing there wondering where we're going to find transparent aluminium, and they're standing right next to an ad for the yellow pages painted on a wall. I think that's the joke that ages this film the most.
Oh,
probably.
I have some interesting trivia regarding the transparent aluminium. Via Wikipedia, pure transparent aluminium was created as a new state of matter by a team of scientists in 2009. A laser pulse removed an electron from every atom without disrupting the crystalline structure. However, the transparent state lasted for only 40 femtoseconds until electrons returned to the material. So we can make transparent aluminium, but it can only be transparent for less time than we would really even be able to register.
Wow. Okay, so is this where the timeline diverges? Is this where, the Star Trek universe at this point is different from our reality because it's 1986 when they discover it, and then eugenics wars and so on and so on.
Well, I was also wondering if the Starfleet dolphins, is that where the dolphins went in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Possibly, ended up joining the Vulcans and then, Federation before us. Which, fair.
turns out the dolphins invented a warp drive deep down beneath the oceans, and the Vulcans were like, okay, let's just get the fish. Let's get the fish.
And now we've arrived at Ecco the Dolphin and dolphins and aliens and.
So this film is very pro-environmentalism. You know, I'm sure there's going to be some angry chud who was like, the woke pro-environmentalism of Star Trek for the Voyage Home. And given that this film does talk a lot about how whales are close to the point of extinction, especially mentioning the blue whale, I know you're very interested in animal conservation and did some research.
Yeah. As a bit of a background, I have actually been whale watching when I was a kid. We did kind of a travel package to San Diego, and before we knew it was terrible, we did SeaWorld, which I actually got to meet Corky the killer whale, and I can tell you what it tastes like. Taste? Edit that.
Okay, that's a different experience than I thought we were.
What it feels like to run your hand over the skin of a killer whale. It's very like tiny ridges.
Ooh.
Yeah. Anyway, we went to the aquarium, we went whale watching. So for that reason, at least partially for that reason, kind of marine biology and marine conservation kind of connects me to my childhood a little bit. So anyway, with that having been said, I have made some notes a little bit, at least about humpback whale, kind of how that conservation has been going. As much as we are able to trust it nowadays, their current status is least concern. They've been rebounding overall over the planet, but in other certain areas of the globe more than others. The Pacific Northwest, in particular, has seen a huge surge in their populations. Others less, but it seems like at least to an extent for now, we've made a lot of progress. Hunting of humpback whales is severely limited now, and they still have to deal, of course, with climate change and fishing hazards. And interestingly, like most cetaceans, they can actually be gravely harmed by loud undersea noises. So there are other hazards there that may not be deliberate, but we still kind of need to. They even sometimes collide with ships, unfortunately. So some shipping lanes actually impose speed limits to help avoid that situation.
Wow, I thought this was going to be a bummer for a moment, but that's actually really good to hear that they're in a better state. Of course, last year there was the sinking of a yacht by some killer whales. Good work, Comrade Whales.
It's a good start. It's a good start. We'll
yeah. Next, aim for more wealthy people's boats, please. That said, it didn't click until listening to your recap. I didn't realize how almost immediately the whalers were on these lot.
Yeah,
it felt like, did they have their ear to the ground? Were they like, oh, we've heard? So like the second they leave, like San Francisco Bay, we are going after them. That felt incredibly quick.
Yeah, I mean, got to wrap things up, but it does feel something like they were like, well, that may actually be there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some truth to that. Just kind of being able to be like, oh, we got one. The other thing that I wondered about, which maybe it seems odd to me because I kind of grew up like interested in like science and marine biology in general and stuff, but the presentation at the aquarium when Jillian is like saying, popular to common belief, whales are not fish. I'm like, did people in the 80s actually think that whales are fish? It's is that I actually do not know.
I mean, people in the 80s thought voting for Reagan and Thatcher were good ideas. So I have, I hold no hope for the people of the 80s.
Well, so
yeah, I don't know. Like in theory, there were kids on the tour, so I guess a kid's gonna need to learn that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, actually, as far as the use of whales and like conservation, a thing which I've realized, I was like, oh, how did this do anything for the whales? And apparently whale rights activists were originally really pissed off with this film before finding out 95% of the footage was man-made whales, was like fake whales. It's like, we didn't do anything to whales. Don't worry, guys.
There's some interesting facts about how they did the model whales on the Wikipedia entry for the movie, which I was looking at earlier.
Yeah. It's that thing of when you realize you kind of get it, you go like, oh yeah, of course, most of the time when we're seeing them in real life, where they can't just use some B-roll or anything, it is close enough and big enough that you can get away with it and go, just use something else. But you know, it's one of those things I often talk about here about selling us that lie of going, as long as they act like it's real, I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
I mean, it still looks really cool. Like at the end where they're in the water with the whales. And could I mention how much I love that even Spock is clearly having a wonderful time?
Yeah,
it's just so delightful.
No, Spock is having a whale of a time.
Hey. Yeah.
Although there's clearly a point where both Nimoy and Shatner are clearly wrestling over who gets to throw the other into the water first.
Yes.
Oh, God.
I kind of feel like they were like, all right, everybody just get in the water and have fun. We're gonna do the model whale thing in front of you. Just have fun. No specific directions. Just roughhouse in the water.
Oh yeah, at that point it's like fine, just go enjoy yourselves. Yeah,
it feels it's really serendipitous that we're doing this episode and we're covering this film so soon after the Sarek episode, where we take no hesitation saying Sarek might be the worst parent in fiction, not named Genma Saotome. And so I think one of my most like favorite moments of this film is at the very end when Sarek gives like the most Vulcan kind of, okay, fine. I'm not gonna win any Parents of the Year awards, but okay. Spock, you were right. It was good for you to join Starfleet. You work with good people, and I may have been wrong.
Oh, yeah, that must hurt. Especially knowing now that he lost not one but two kids to Starfleet. Yeah.
Hopefully, when Sarek made it back to Vulcan, Amanda goes up to him and goes, "Oh, did Spock anything? Did Spock say anything?" Hopefully, Sarek just didn't go, "He loves me best. He hates you."
I was right. I was right.
Yeah.
So okay. Before we put this on the big list, Charlie, what was your favorite joke in the movie?
Oh God, I mean that's the difficult thing with this. There are so many fun moments. I think I was just very tickled by McCoy and like him running around the hospital fixing everything. It's like, I mean, you get people that are torn up about messing with time and all of the kind of, oh no, it's all terrible, but we can't change anything. McCoy doesn't give a shit.
No, McCoy would be the one who cares least about that when there's people that he could be helping out, because it's what he does.
Just any of the bits about going, oh no, this is nice modern technology. It's like, it's fucking medieval what you're doing here. What is this? Get out.
The line where, admittedly, the line where a doctor's like, yeah, we've got her on chemotherapy. That one kind of that one stings now. As being with one person here has actually been on chemotherapy.
It's like, McCoy, could have used you.
Yeah, could we fix it? Can you
could you come back?
I think with you, it's definitely McCoy, McCoy versus the American health industry.
It feels sadly even more relevant now.
Relevant.
Yes.
I also Spock, whether or not he likes Italian.
Yes.
I like Italian, and so do you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, their dynamic while trying to talk to Gillian and keep their stories straight while inevitably not actually being able to was good fun.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've talked about Double Dumbass on You. That's
Mm-hmm.
prerequisite. Also, the punk on the bus. The one I have to mention because I think we quote it at least once a week is "Hello, computer." It's like a keyboard, and then as we were watching it, we both went at the same time, "How quaint!" And then we just fist bump.
Like I don't know if it's come up on the show. I can't remember. We have an Alexa from a evil corporation, and when I found out when my parents first bought me one, we found out phrase from either have it be Alexa or computer. And the moment I found out that I could call it computer, I'm just like, well, it's not going to get called Alexa ever again.
Yes.
And then the activation phrase got set to computer because, yes, I'm that kind of nerd. The downside is, whenever we're watching Star Trek...
This is not a downside.
And someone tells the computer to do something, the Alexa will pick up on it. And I've always been very worried anytime someone had about to say computer, initiate the self-destruct system, and I've had to quickly just mute it just in case my Alexa catches fire.
Got it.
Yeah, for the explosives and the self-destruct that Bezos has put in every single one of them.
Like, when we're watching Star Trek and someone says computer, we both immediately look to the left where the Alexa's sitting on the table, like, is it going to light up? It just, all right, the Alexa dot in the bathroom is going off. Okay, now it's stopped.
Oh no. We don't have an Alexa here, but the PlayStation does similar things where it was when my brother was visiting over Christmas and he and I were talking about it and just saying PlayStation, and suddenly it's like, oh, hello, I'm trying to look for the thing you've mentioned. We ended up both just shouting, no! It's like, I can't do it at this time. It's God's sake.
It's like
and it's in the way now of the screen.
It's like he's the eager friend who just wants to help. Like, yes, can I do something? Yes. What do you want?
It's like, no, we don't like you, PlayStation voice thing.
It's the Patton Oswalt TiVo joke come to life.
So, on that horrifying note about the things that are listening to our every moment of life in our homes, we have a big list of Star Trek films and TV episodes, currently standing at 154, with a movie capping up the very top and the very bottom. We have, in first place, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. In the 50th place, we've got Tuvix, surprisingly good showing there. And, he got what was coming to him. In 100, we've got Menage a Troy, with the Ferengi at their most internet guy, as they try and kidnap Troy's mum. At 150, we've got Enterprise's Broken Bow, and all the way at the bottom, we have Star Trek Section 31. What if a Star Trek movie really, really badly, though? Not even a Star Trek movie, ultimately.
No.
Just, the occasional Star Trek reference. So, I'm zooming all the way back up, because it feels like it's going to be a quite high one here. Now, the highest ranking movie we have is Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, which has some incredible moments. It's got a great villain, even though his hatred of Kirk feels a little one-sided at times. And this feels like it's definitely a movie that's high up. I think Wrath of Khan, for me, might just pip it, because it's more space and more Star Trek in that respect. While this is a very good movie, and as you say, like, aside from one R word in there, it is a 1980s movie that holds up well. And that is a rare great thing. So I think Wrath of Khan's above it, but it's probably still, in that top area.
Yeah, I mean, oh god, this is the part where it gets hard because there's also the sense of if this isn't what tops Wrath of Khan, we're still at the point of what will.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like I can look at the list. We've got Emissary, which is DS9's first episode, which is still amazing. Balance of Terror at number 3, and like this, I think after the all the Star Trek films so far, apart from Section 31, are still up in the top 15.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh god, this is where it gets difficult because this is really good. At the same time, I think this is that in terms of TOS, this is that one movie where, with the exception of Uhura, again, like my one complaint about the movie is that all the characters get to have a bit.
Yeah.
Where Uhura doesn't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is a really good, like, for TOS, this is a good ensemble and not just the Kirk, Spock, and McCoy fun-packed power hour.
So, like, I think Emissary might be better than this in a track list, but once we start hitting things like Balance of Terror, it's like, well, yeah, it might be that it's a contender there. I think one of the other problems is I know this has a close place in my heart as the first Star Trek thing that I watched, and trying to make sure that it's not just for nostalgia goggles.
I mean, like, no, like, it's... I think this is one of the few of the Trek films when we don't get into, like, the modern Kelvin Trek movies, which I feel has the most mainstream appeal. Because I feel like after this, the films will get increased, especially when it gets into next-gen territory. The films get increasingly insular. Whereas this one, I feel like you can put it on. Like, I feel like, it becomes weird that, like I keep saying, like, an episode of Star Trek that you can just kind of sit down and watch with, like, a cup of coffee after a stressful day at work is a better one than, say, one which exemplifies the core, like, values of Star Trek, because if you were going to a non-Star Trek fan with a big list of all the Star Trek from best to worst, rated on, as a casual fan, how much do you like this? The one where everyone gets to basically F about in San Francisco and save whales is definitely up there. Because
it's a good mission.
It's a good romp. All the characters get a little bit to do. The important plot stuff of Star Trek 2 and 3 are summed up and just basically pushed away in the first 5 minutes. All you need to know is that Kirk and co broke orders and are gonna face the music. The basic specifics don't matter. It's all covered in those first 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, that said, it's 35 odd minutes or so until they go back in time. Like, it takes a little bit to get going with that. But it's like, okay, I've seen this film multiple times as a child. I didn't remember that whole first bit at all. In my mind, you've got the Sinister Column. They're in a Klingon bird of prey. They're back in time.
I'm there with you. I probably finally I'll get it at this point. I'm just like, okay, yeah, there's this longer bit, and like I remember, seeing it the second time, I'm like, oh yeah, there's this whole bit that like right now I'm not really familiar with what happened before that, because it was actually a little while until I saw Wrath of Khan.
So I think I actually showed you this film for the first time when we were still dating, and I think we did watch Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and The Voyage Home. But whenever we end up rewatching a Star Trek film, or feel like rewatching a Star Trek film, hey, guess what? It's the one with the whales and everyone's being funny because it's a gigantic fish out of water movie, and not a film is trying to intentionally be funny. We'll get to you, Voyage Home. Not Voyage Home. We'll get to you, Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, when they're trying to be funny to recapture the shenanigans of this film. That said, there was something we did forget to mention.
I didn't hate the fifth movie. I mean, it wasn't great.
It's not,
but it was.
I feel the fifth movie gets a lot of bad rap, but then again,
it was fine.
It's the first Trek film I saw, so it has a special place in my heart. I realized that we forgot to mention that originally the scientist who's from the present day,
yes, that's right,
who was going to help them out, was originally going to be Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, that's quite a choice.
That's quite a choice.
Change.
Honestly, I think it's a choice for the better, because, I feel like Eddie Murphy, especially at this point of the 80s when Eddie Murphy was like, I think he was the big comedian. Who would, like, he and Steve Martin, I think, were the big comedians who had gone from stand-up into acting. Like, okay, Steve Martin in a Star Trek film would be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
I mean, Steve Martin, like, being in a Star Trek film. Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez in a Star Trek film would be chef's kiss. Like, I'm there. I'm down there with you. But like Eddie Murphy,
no notes.
But Eddie Murphy, at least it would be 80s Eddie Murphy in a Star Trek film, which would be a lot better than 90s Eddie Murphy, which it would definitely be, can I do this in a fat suit? Or can I do this in drag?
Yeah, there is that problem of going, he's got a bit too big a presence, really, for the role that Gillian has here.
I mean,
yeah, it'd make the dinner scene interesting.
Yeah, other 80s comedians who I think would be great in a film because they'd be good at doing character parts. John Candy. John Candy in a Star Trek, in Voyage Home, would be lovely.
And would not be out of place. That would be a delight.
Of course, this might be the Star Trek film when they have to go to Canada to, I don't know, save something Canadian, like the probe wants maple syrup.
Yeah.
Like Rick Moranis.
What, saving Rick Moranis?
Yes, they had to save Rick. They're much different from they had to go back in time and save Rick Moranis to communicate with the probe.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
So, tangents aside.
Yeah.
So, okay. Man. I definitely think it's in the top 5.
Yeah.
It's not going to knock Wrath of Khan, and it's not going to knock Emissary. I mean, Balance of Terror is really good. So, do you think this is better or worse than Journey into Babel?
So, Journey into Babel, our number 4, I like. We covered that really recently. I kind of feel that this is better than Journey into Babel.
Yes.
While that does a lot for the Star Trek lore, and you've got some fun drama with Spock and his folks, I think this is better than that. Balance of Terror is the difficult one there, because it's got some great moments, some great submarine in space kind of drama. You've got the reveal of Romulans. But yeah, I think this is
our number 4.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like 3 films out of our top 5 all have Mark Lennon in a supporting guest role. Because he's the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror, and then he's Spock's dad and everything else.
Yeah, this is a surprisingly Mark Leonard heavy top 5. And it does feel like Star Trek 4 is, like 2, 3, and 4 are your kind of perfect 3 that all go together quite well. Like, tonally they can be different, but
it's a good trilogy of science fiction films, which I feel is Star Trek, like classic movie Star Trek at its most accessible.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need a huge amount of knowledge going in. It's just like you just have the cultural osmosis that you have Kirk, who is like the tough command, who is like the commander. You have Spock, his logical assistant, and then you have McCoy, who is just there to complain about everything, but he's so southern about it that you let him do it.
Yeah, just fine. Let him talk, you know. Okay. So, that's our main feature, but we do try and pair any of our two-parts in films with something else that's thematically similar. And this is a point where I should probably apologise to Reanna, because this means that you'll have been exposed to Picard Season 2. And Miles, you know, it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I got some John Delancey, though, so...
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, always like a bit of John Delancey.
And now the disappointing dessert cart.
Yeah, now the Picardening.
Yeah, man, I really wish we'd done like that one time travel episode from TOS when they accidentally save a jet pilot.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are enough time travel ones. Like, at some point, we've got the Voyager one where they meet Sarah Silverman.
I forget about that.
Yeah. I've no idea if it's any good, because that's beyond when I saw any Voyager.
I think I saw it, but I do not remember it.
Yeah, it is that thing of going, oh yeah. There's still so much that I've not seen with any of this.
All right, okay, everyone. Okay,
Yeah.
back in the room.
So, we've had a sumptuous meal. Now it is time for a really upsetting dessert. We have Picard Season 2, Episode 4, Watcher. It aired on the 24th of March 2022. Teleplay by Juliana James and Jane Maggs. Story by Travis Fickett and Juliana James. Directed by Leah Thompson. Yes, Back to the Future and Howard the Duck's Leah Thompson, who is canonically in Marvel Comics as Leah Thompson, having to deal with Howard the Duck in that as well.
God, I love the weirdness of Marvel. I love Marvel Comics sometimes. Like, technically, Godzilla exists in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, and J. Jonah Jameson yelled at him one time.
Yeah.
You can tell that we're in for a fun one, because we're all distracting ourselves by talking about other things. But yeah, I'm recapping this one.
So what were the UK and US number ones of this?
Oh yeah,
televisual feast.
Yeah, so we have Dave with Starlight, and the US had Glass Animals with Heat Waves.
I like Heat Waves. The trouble with the Daves, I can't believe it's taken us UK music this long to give us a musical artist who is simply called Dave.
Yeah, it feels very us. The
trouble is it uses "Fly Me to the Moon." It's like the backing track, and the trouble is now, anytime I hear "Fly Me to the Moon," I'm like, man, something depressing sure happened to Shinji this week. Because for listeners who don't know, "Fly Me to the Moon" is the closing theme for the incredible anime Neon Genesis Evangelion, where something depressing has probably happened to Shinji Ikari, who has the second worst dad in all of anime after Genma Saotome. As we have said before, say we like about Gendo Ikari, at least he didn't sell his son for a food truck, which he promptly stole.
Yeah, Heat Waves was okay, just a bit mediocre. Starlight, I would rather listen to Fly Me to the Moon, but it's all right. It just felt a bit like, okay, what's this about though? I think it's better than the previous Dave that we've had, and I can't help but say Dave in that kind of way, like Dave from the garage.
All right, Dave. See, the thing is, it's because of Only Fools and Horses, the name Dave is like 90% funnier to the English than it is to most Americans, because, you know, you're not going to get a context of why it's funny to call someone Dave in a very kind of lethargic Cockney accent.
Right, so, speaking of lethargic Cockneys, it's time for me to do a recap.
Okay, you have 5 minutes, as always, to recap Picard. Go.
Okay, so previously, Q's done some shenanigans. Elnor's dead. Yay! Time is screwed up, and the cast are in 2024. Most of the Borg Queen reckons they need to find some kind of watcher, but they're not in Buffy, so they need to find some alternate way of doing that. They need to be subtle, and of course Rios is immediately injured, fallen in love with the Doctor, and caught by ice, who of course should be abolished. So, now, the ship is parked by Chateau Picard, and Jail's trying to call the away team, but there's nothing. He and Jurati cloak La Serena and explore the chateau, which is a real fixer-upper. He flashes back to his mum, listening to Edith Piaf's Je ne regrette rien, which will be a whole thing for this season. JL then notices a number of 15s in what Jurati is doing and saying, and says, "Oh, the bits of Borg Queen in her brain, don't worry about it," as saying that they've only got 3 days, because today's the 12th, and that is some Monel logic. Fine. Anyway, Rafi and Seven have discovered Ice have arrested Rios and take the bus to see him. Familiar Punk is playing I Still Hate You, and when Seven threatens him, he quickly turns the music off, holding his neck in a kind of, bad memories. Reference, huh? You like reference? JL heads out, leaving Jurati and her history of fucking up constantly with the Borg Queen, who immediately gets in her head. JL beams over to Forward Avenue and to a bar called 10. Yeah, 10 Forward. Reference. Guinan's there, and she's really jaded after seeing the 2020s of Earth, and she's out of here. He brings up how she's an Eloran, and she pulls a gun on him. Rafi has some problems with the filth, and Rando says she's actually in the wrong place, but this guy is going to get sent away without a trial anyway, because Ice be that way. Ice are, of course, being a bunch of cunts. They tase Rios for talking back. Dr. Teresa finds him, and they bond a little. Guinan and Picard have a chat, and he's here to find a watcher. She's fleeing the planet as it's dying thanks to humans, and, you know, how the wealthiest in the planet are making it worse instead of fixing anything. And, man, you've not even got to 2025. It's so much worse here. Anyway, yeah, she's tired of all this, and girl, same here. Rafi steals a cop car in possibly my favourite Rafi moment of the entire show. Seven is concerned about all this, but gets in and drives badly, like me doing GTA badly. Rios calls Teresa a hero for what she's been doing with her illegal clinic, seeing to refugees, and he's due to be shipped out. And when an ice douchebag asks for his details, he just lays it all out there. From the future, space future no less. He's a captain on a spaceship. He, of course, isn't believed, is chucked on a bus and sent away. The Most for Queen offers to help Jurati in fixing the transports on La Serena, which would have helped with a lot of all of this. She's basically kind of charming her and then negging her a bit, and Jurati offers up her company in return for sorting out the transporters. Rafi, now using the police laptop, knows where the bus is. The Fuzz are chasing her, and she needs to stall for time. So it's a nice bit of a chase, and when she stops and the police are closing in, Jurati beams the pair out. They appear where the bus is due to pass, and they need to hijack it, but prestige TV, so that will be in another episode. Guinan is still not wanting to get involved. She's not Jail's watcher, and when he finally gives his name and his whole deal to her, she says, fine, there is some kind of supervisor / guardian angel sort of deal who she can point him to. They go to a park, and a kid with white eyes sends Guinan away and guides Picard to other people that are seemingly possessed by the same person. his past person to person until he sees the supervisor. And oh my god, she looks exactly like Orla Brady from that TV series Eternal Law about the angel lawyers. Also Varys in this one. The mystery supervisor teleports them both away with a cool door effect. And finally, Q is watching a blonde reading a Dixon Hill mystery, talking kind of as her inner monologue, her self-doubts. And he snaps his fingers and nothing happens.
Oh, Charlie. You were so close.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
I thought you were going to do it this week.
I almost did.
All right, okay. All right, stopwatch, go.
Yeah. He snaps his fingers, nothing happens, and he says, that's unexpected and most unfortunate. The end.
9 seconds.
That's how close I was.
So close, so close.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there are moments sometimes where you go like, oh yeah, there's some good bits.
This is good in Picard. You know what would have made this even better? Molotov cocktail.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I think, when people on the right who spend too much time online complain about Star Trek being woke, I think this is the one episode you can show to them and go, here is your valid example. But the thing is, you also think that detaining, detaining and deporting people browner than you is a moral good. So really, should we be listening to you?
No, we should never be listening to them.
Correct.
Yeah, like I forgot how much this season gets into that kind of thing, because it's not just unique to this episode. The kind of the illegal clinic being used to help any kind of refugees from across the border, to help people with no papers or anything, and ICE coming and being utter dicks to them, which are good signs of this is not a good time. This is not a good place. And even though Guinan spends so much of this episode going, I'm going to deny the call here, but obviously I'm going to help you by the end, but we need to pad this out until we get to the full hour. Like, she makes some valid points about, I was supposed to come here and, observe the place and help folks out, and look at this fucking mess. Like, if they're not sorting it out, well, I'm not.
Guinan also has a very good dog.
Yes, Luna, a very cute dog.
Who meets JL and immediately softens. Yeah,
I do like the way that Guinan, when she's drinking with him and still pointing a gun at him, the moment that he's good to a dog, she's like, fine, point the gun away. Obviously, if you're good with a dog, then you're a good egg. Which,
to quote dated poorly film Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, what do you know? Dogs can sense evil.
Yeah, there were a lot of references. There were more than I just pointed out. There were things like Guinan's number plate is the episode number for TNG that she appeared in for the first time, and that. And it's okay, at least a lot of these were fairly minor.
Yeah.
Although, the bus punk, you've just heard us and how well we've ranked Star Trek 4 and how it is one that a lot of us saw in the 80s without having seen any of Star Trek previously. So that feels like the most, here is a reference for you, but kind of thing.
At the same time, but the thing is, to have the punk just turn up 20 years, 30 years, 2024, 40 years later, and he still dresses as a punk, and he's still listening to a boombox, and he's still listening to the same band, even if it's a different song, honestly says so much about his character. So clearly, he's an old punk. And as we all know, old punks are either, awesome, or Henry Rollins, who should be abolished.
I mean, in Brighton, you do get a lot of
old
kind
punk.
Fairly crusty, fairly burnt out ones. Back at the comic shop, we used to get them fairly regularly.
I
mean,
it was like, oh,
I mean, he's kind of like it's kind of like my stepdad, who was an old deadhead.
Yeah, to be honest, compared to a lot of those, like the comic shop punks that had come in, where it's like, yeah, here's one that's basically a zombie, given the amount of acid that he did back in the day. Like, at least this bus punk has done all right.
Yeah,
you know, he's kept himself in fairly good nick.
So clearly, like he's listening to it on a boombox. So clearly, he either knows a guy. I started just like writing a headcanon for this old punk because I have very little to go on. So it's like, yeah, clearly he must run like one of those like places which repairs old kit. So clearly he's involved in his community. Yeah. I want to imagine like he's one of those punks who like who cares about the community, even though he's listening to a song called "I Still Hate You." So
yeah, it's just nostalgic for him. That's fair.
Yeah,
and maybe I'm easily entertained, but I thought the reference is fun, especially like it changes up from like, I'm sorry, I just really like that song. It's just like, no,
like, I mean, okay, and this is where I get to mention, because I realized the punk is played by Kirk Thatcher, the most 80s name, and he mostly does special effects work, and he worked for the Henson Studios, and he wrote the script for Muppets Treasure Island. Wow. Muppets Treasure Island has the actor Kevin Bishop, who played Jim in Muppets Treasure Island, and he also went on to a fairly decent career, from what I'm told. The thing is, for a while he was friends with my stepbrother, and so I've actually been in the pub having a pint with Kevin Bishop. Which then, in his show, the Kevin Bishop Show, had a very young Karen Gillan, who would then go on to be in a show called Doctor Who, which means I am, if we go by the 6 to 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, which is any actor is 7 steps away from Kevin Bacon or Christopher Lee, given how prolific they are. I am. Hang on. So me, I've had a pint with Kevin Bishop. Kevin Bishop worked on Muppet Treasure Island, which was written by Kirk Thatcher, which means I am and Kirk Thatcher was in a film directed by Leonard Nimoy. I am 4 degrees of Kevin Bacon away from Leonard Nimoy, and also Matt Smith.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's his most. I don't really have much to say about this episode, because like it's fine. Rafi and Seven steal a cop car, and they're gonna deliver SmackDown to ICE. Sadly, we don't see it in this episode, but we do get to see Seven and Rafi steal a cop car and drive around doing basically how I play GTA, which is anytime I play GTA, I never try and do any of the jobs, never try and do any of the missions. I basically try and antagonize. I've been playing GTA this way since the original game, which is get as many police cars as I can chasing after you and see how long I can survive against the police.
Yeah. That's often a fun challenge to do. I think as far as episodes of Picard go, a lot of the time we end up judging them more on moments than on a whole story, just because of how serialized it is. Like when we did the musical number episode, which I think's 2 after this, where I was like, oh, I'm right down for a heist. I like a good heist. And then we got like the last half of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I wanted more heisting. With this as well, I was like, come on, blow up, like smash the ice bus, all that. Oh, it's ended.
Oh, it's ended. Oh. It's like, I feel like Picard and Discovery are the shows that our format runs up against the worst, because they're both very heavily serialized shows, and the sum of it, like, I feel like Picard, when you break it down into you're watching one episode to talk about for the big list, Picard is the show that suffers the most.
Yeah, I mean, if they'd have broken it down into like 2 or even 3-parters, that'd be a bit more tolerable with it. But yeah, it's tricky with that. That said, looking at the list at the moment, our best episode of Picard is spot number 106 with the start of Picard season 3, and our lowest is currently spot number 150 with episode 1 of season 1. So yeah, that's, I don't know, maybe that's the show with the worst, highest rated episode there. I think it is. Cause yeah, like even the animated series and Disco do better, and Enterprise. So let's see. Looking down on the list, 124 is Picard's Impossible Box. And I was looking between that and The Next Generation, the first episode of Picard season 3, and there are some very fun episodes. Like even though they're in the hundreds here, like Fistful of Datas is still good fun.
Yeah.
You've got, Worf once again being a terrible parent, but
but they get to piss around doing a Western spoof, and all the bad guys are played by Data.
Yeah, even Charlie X, which has some fun moments.
It's like, the fact that they're in the 100s of a big list doesn't mean it's bad. That's like the bottom 5 of the list, when that's from, like, I would say 149 TNG is the high ground where it hits. I mean, even 148, which is a mathematically perfect redemption, which is 30 minutes of fucking Peanut Hamper, is still kind of better than like the last 5 or 6 in the list, because as we've established, fuck Peanut Hamper.
Yep.
We are the fuck Peanut Hamper club. Like, I don't think there's any dissent there.
Like, the only thing that can happen to Peanut Hamper after this episode of Star Trek Lower Decks is a 2x4. That's the nicest thing that can happen to Peanut Hamper. Like the one scene in Office Space when they're just clubbing a printer in a field while a song singing Die Motherfucker, Die Motherfucker, Die Motherfucker plays is the nicest thing that could happen to Peanut Hamper.
So do we have just all of the Lower Decks crew just wailing on?
Yes, all the Lower Decks, they all have
they all have their own improvised weapon.
Yes.
That they've just picked up.
This feels like art that needs to be commissioned.
I would, yeah.
Wow.
I gotta get my sketchbook out, I guess.
So all the individual characters, and usually when someone does art commissions, it's a specific price amount of character. So maybe that needs to be the patron. Maybe that needs to be like our top Patreon goal. We get this much money, we commission.
Yeah. Someone drawing like the crew of Lower Decks beating the shit out of.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not. We're not a fuck Peanut Hamper podcast. We did that episode.
Yeah, you can go back and listen to it. It's fine.
Like, although I just want to say, Mariner's weapon has to be the Batleth.
Yeah.
Just.
So, let's see. We have Picard, season 1, episode 6, The Impossible Box, in 124 on here. Do you reckon it's better than that? Like, that's got some fun action.
I think that the Impossible Box is better, because at least then you have, like, you have Picard reuniting with Hugh, and there's like a very nice there's a moment of actual emotion in Picard, and it's not just the kind of Sturm Undrang Picard complaining that things were better back in my day.
Yeah,
like Picard actually seems to have like a moment of emotional catharsis when he meets Hugh, a former Borg, and sees the scale of the Borg reclamation project, which is all these former Borg having the implants removed and giving a chance to rehabilitate. It's like, this is the stuff I want to see more of in Picard, and not everyone running around present day because it's probably going to be cheaper. And as much as I enjoy Seven and Rafi stealing a cop car and Rios bantering with an ICE official, I'm like, this is this is not particularly Star Trek. This doesn't feel particularly Trekky.
Yeah.
They're back in time for specific time reasons, but so much feels like fluff to pad it out and not. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of meat on the bones. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down to 134, which is Enterprise Season 4, Episode 3, Home, where they come back from being in space for a year and Earth is racist now. And I feel this is kind of on the level of subtlety. I think this is on a par.
Yeah.
But whereas like Home, for context for Reanna, Season 3 of Enterprise was basically the crew of the Enterprise doing a space war on Terror, because at the end of Season 2 of Enterprise, Space 9/11 happens, and so the Enterprise goes off to find the people who did a Space 9/11, and unlike the actual War on Terror, actually went to the people who did it and actually did stuff. I can't remember. We actually haven't watched that part. No. And then this episode is them having come back from a space war on Terror, seeing how space Islamophobia has affected Earth. And I feel like this is on the same level, but even less subtle, because at least in Enterprise they're going, hey, these are space analogs for our current moment. Whereas this is just kind of like, it's not even like it's trying to, there's no subtlety.
When the problem isn't fixed by the end of either of these episodes.
Yeah, because at least even when we have like the DS9 where it's in the 2020s and it's the Bell riots and the 20, there is still there is enough of a science fiction kind of, we can brush this.
Yeah.
When here it's just like, it is, our characters, and it's picked up by ice, and it's like, okay, so we're just going to call it what it is. Like, on one hand, good on them for presenting ice as being unambiguously evil and cruel. At the same time, you're like, this, doesn't.
So did this feel a little bit like the Rosa Parks episode, Doctor Who?
Pretty much.
Where I forgot about that episode.
It feels so hard, like it's trying to pat itself on the back, that doesn't feel like it's actually trying to be good TV. And as much, and we get into the whole accusations of modern Star Trek being woke with quotation marks, and it's just like, Star Trek is always, this is Star Trek, and it at its most trying to be of the present time, but it never actually tries to say, hey, let's try and do an analog so we can kind of, we can actually try and make this a story. It just feels like it's just trying to be of the moment, and that's where it falls down. Because, you can have Picard and the gang take on, say, space analog for ice and beat them, but you watch this and you go, but nothing's gonna get changed, because you're not, in 1942 or whatever, you can have Captain America punch out a Nazi, you can have Captain America punch out Hitler on the cover, but you're not.
You need to follow through.
You need to follow through. Like in Doctor Who, you can still have Rory go back in time and punch Hitler in the face, and then punch a Nazi and steal a motorcycle. But you still have to go, yes, but that system continues. It's not as if they then try and actually kill Hitler. And you can't have Captain Picard punch ice and then ice is fixed forever.
Okay. So, I mean, between preferring the analogy version of it and also Trip's sweet Anakin Skywalker cosplay, I'm feeling that Home is going to be kind of better than Watcher.
Yeah, because it just it just doesn't, it's, I don't know, it just feels trivial.
Mm.
It almost feels like you're kind of trivializing it because you have the characters presented with a problem that we know they can't fix because,
we still have this problem.
We still have this problem.
Oh, we do.
And it's like, and then like with the Rosa Parks episode, when like, hey, we talked about Rosa Parks, but the characters don't stop racism. Like the characters end up looking powerless because the Doctor has to do a race, because the Doctor and her companions have to do a racism to preserve the timeline. And like again, like I keep saying, like that's the point where it really unintentionally weakens the Jodie Whittaker Doctor, because you're like, you wouldn't have that scene, you wouldn't have John Pertwee, the John Pertwee Doctor would stand up in moral outrage, and the same with the Sixth Doctor, at having to do a racism to preserve the timeline. But you just then, the closer you make the metaphor, and it's like with the X-Men, like the mutant metaphor can only go so far, because the more you try and realistically apply the mutant metaphor allegory, the more it just kind of trivializes and weakens the characters.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the Matthew Rosenberg run and Wolfsbane's death during that, which there are whole things. Like, if I remember, I will put stuff in the show notes about that, because we're nearing 2 hours now. So yes, rather than get on one about X-Men again. So I feel I'm learning and growing, after nearly, nearly 3 years of doing this. So yes. So finally, Picard, the Watcher, or just Watcher.
Okay, so
under Home, above Encounter?
I don't know. Like Encounter at Farpoint, I'll watch. Like I'll probably I'll get around to rewatching this when I actually get around to watching season 2 of Picard in chronological episodic order as intended eventually. But like,
see, I quite like that while we're doing this, you're coming to it all in whatever order we're doing.
At least I get to watch the lovely awkward. At least with Encounter at Farpoint, I get to watch Patrick Stewart kind of visualizing behind his eyes, I've just destroyed my career.
Okay. So let's see. There's a triple called Quest with a horrific triple abomination in 138.
I think that one is better.
Okay, 2 of 1.
Oh god,
so
the heist episode of the season. I don't know. I think that one is also better, because it's,
I guess it's musical numbers / heist, or the heist stuff. Okay, Despite Yourself with Captain Killy.
Okay, I think we've hit as low as it can go.
Okay.
So
what?
I think that this is slightly better than Despite Yourself. An episode I summed up with a minute 13 left to go, because there was so little to actually talk about in the episode.
Yeah, that does feel like a bit of a sign. So,
which means that yes, the episode of TNG where Wesley ruins visits a planet fuck with season 1's Justice is better than good chunks of Picard so far.
Yeah, sounds right. People underestimate the trip to planet fuck, but sometimes it can still be good fun, or at least make for an entertaining 40 minutes.
Yes.
So, with all of that done, we are at the end of another episode of Casual Trek. Next time, I'm not 100% sure what we're doing on the slate, so something Star Trek based. If you want to encounter us, you don't have to go to Farpoint. You can always find Casual Trek on your podcatchers, on YouTube, on Ko-fi, and on Blue Sky at casualtrek.bsky.social. Reanna, as our guest, is there anywhere that people are to find your works, or do you wish not to be perceived by the internet as many go?
I'm kind of working on getting stuff up right now, so no, I do writing, and that's kind of what I've been working on. So
I mean, do you want to plug your Blue Sky account?
oh yeah, sure. Let's see. My Blue Sky username is Reanimator. So ReannaMator. If you'd like to look for me there.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Another nice Jeffrey Combs adjacent thing there. Cool. Miles, what about you?
All right, you can find me on my Blue Sky at milesreedlobatto.bsky.social. Booyah, did it! And then you can find me on my blog at mareedlobatto.wordpress.com.
Yeah. So you can find me on fakedtales.com, where I'm currently mostly talking about 2000 AD and occasionally my Super Mario Quest. I am still on Yoshi's Island. It's fun, but beginning to drag a little. I'm also on Blue Sky at skyshark.bsky.social. And that's probably it for me for now. So, with all that done, it's time to go and do a Starfleet. Save those whales. And, eat a jelly baby. Don't eat a whale.
I concur. You're going to edit out when I said taste instead of feel.
We'll see. We'll see.
Look, we have let stuff the other has said that has been completely humiliating slide on the podcast. We will see. So yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
And don't break the timeline.
You have been listening to Casual Trek, a Nerd and Hype podcast, presented by Charlie Etheridge Nunn and Miles Reid-Lobatto. Music by Alfred Etheridge Nunn. Star Trek by Paramount. Not us. Not yet.